Hello, and thanks for joining the session. Today we're going to be taking a look at more rewrites on that podcast website. And just a quick overview of where we are so far. Yesterday we were working on having the ability to display the episode list a little more like we had in the current design. It's not perfect, but it's getting there. So we were using Tailwind to start playing around with some of this design stuff. The thing that we haven't really done yet is work on getting this duration to display in something other than just an integer. What we had previously for the duration was something like 0, 1, 52. So if it was an hour and 52 minutes, this is the way it would show up. And actually, I think we had, now that I remember it, was actually 3 sections. So it was more like this. So it was an hour and 52 minutes and 13 seconds. So this was the information we actually got directly from the RSS feed. This is the way that iTunes expects this. But I had this stored in the database as an integer. Because I think that makes more sense. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but it's given me something fun to do. So, however, what we need to do now is go from integer number of seconds to this format. And so what I'm going to try and do for that is use a Twig macro. For as long as I've been using Twig, I've never actually created a macro before. So we'll see if that works. I know that yesterday during the session, there was some discussion about how some of this stuff was being handled in the view. It was on the home page. There's a spaceless chunk right here that converts the raw number of bytes to kilobytes, or to like a nice output. So if I go back, here's we got megabytes. I think they've all been megabytes so far, but essentially we wanted to have a nice human way to display that information. And it was suggested that I could just do this in the class itself. So if we go to, say, episode class, episode entity, we could just do it here and say get file length, file size. We could do, say, get file size. And we could do something like pretty or human. And that's totally a way to do this. But I don't really think that's the way I want to go with this. Eventually, I would like to consider this sort of more of a read model. In that case, maybe it would make sense to store the data as the way it's actually going to be presented. But as it is now, it's more of a model, and I kind of want to do at least a little bit of nice things with my classes. But I am going to try to be pragmatic too. So this is just because I haven't ever done a macro and I've wanted to. So if we go back to home, we're probably going to do something with spaceless, and taking a look at Twig's documentations for macro. So let's do Twig macro. The way it's described is more or less a function, except in the Twig language. So it's defined by the macro tag here, and you define the macro name, if you will, along with any arguments you might have. One other difference here, the reason that I'm fine leaving this in this location, actually no, I think we'll convert this to a macro as well, because I think this is probably on the episode as well. So if we go to a specific episode page, we're still going to display the size. So I think it's going to make sense for both of these to be a macro, which I think it'll be good. The other side of this was that we could have had some parts of these be their own template. So the overall look and feel of these two bits are the same, at least from the title, subtitle, and this line perspective. I don't really want to do that. They're different enough and they have different meanings that I don't think I want to do that. So I think I'm going to focus on just creating these as macros. Just to make things easier, I'm going to start with the macro in this page, because I think that should work like that. So let's go ahead and give that a try. All right, so let's do macro, and let's name this seconds to human. And we'll do duration, and then end macro. And let's make sure the page still renders. Cool. So that should be doing something interesting for us. The way we would use this, I believe, is we can just use it here and say seconds to human. No, unknown seconds to human function. All right, so maybe I don't know if you have to import it. So we have a comment in chat here. Kevin's saying that they like to use friendly, like friendly duration. Okay, and also mentioning import from self. I don't think I've used the macros in Twig before either. Okay, so Oliver's in chat as well. So let's see here. Macro wrap. I see. So if macros are defined and used in the same template, you still have to import them. So this is the import key. If we look at that, it's a way to, I guess, essentially make macros available. And in order to use a macro that's defined in the same file, you still have to define it. So the way it's used and the way I'd seen it used was the import dot name of the macro. I guess it makes sense that you have to name it somehow. All right, so let's go ahead and try that. We'll say, I wonder if that has to be in a block as well. We'll try it out here. I'm guessing it won't. Import self. No, import, let's say, episode info dot from self. And yeah, expect a token name value from. Did I do something else wrong before I import self as forms? Import, no. Yeah, chat, they're reminding me it's backwards here. Unknown seconds. Okay, so this actually worked. So I should be able to now just do episode info. Where's it at? Duration. There we go. So we need episode info dot seconds to human. Okay, so it's not actually displaying anything at all. Yeah, so there was a recommendation to maybe just do helpers. I think that probably makes sense. On the other hand, I'm also thinking that this is eventually going to be in its own file. So, yeah. If it's going to be in its own file, it would like it to be consistent. And if I just called this helpers, then if I have additional helpers, that might not necessarily make sense. But if this was the only helpers I'm ever going to have, this would probably be okay. So this is probably a pretty good pragmatic solution here. I'm going to go ahead and do the suggestion here to do friendly duration. Totally cool with that. I like that idea. So try that. Duration. All right. And helpers. All right. Let's see if this loads. Cool. All right. So I'm going to do, first of all, I think I'm going to copy this into a macro. So for the size, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to create a macro called friendly file size. File size. And then I'm just going to paste it in directly. And then I'm going to switch any instances of episode.filesize to file size. And if I render this now, it should be empty. Cool. So I'm actually going to call it now. So let's see, where was that at? Size, helpers.friendly file size, episode.file size. I really don't know why I've never used these before because they've always looked really neat and useful, and this looks so much better than what was there before. I guess I've just been too lazy to actually try it. So now this is actually a bit of code that we can use elsewhere. So when we start making the code for the individual pages, we'll be able to use this helper instead of copying and pasting that bit of code. The next thing I need to do is actually implement the duration part. So let's see what we're going to do for that. Let's see, file size by kilobyte, gigabyte. So I think I'm going to do a similar thing here. Spaceless and spaceless. And instead of kilobytes, I'm going to do seconds. So set kilobyte. Let's do. All right, let's. Minutes is going to be 60 seconds, and hours is going to be minutes times 60. And we don't have anything beyond that right now, so I think I'm totally fine with that. Seconds equals duration percent 60. Yep, that is more or less it. Kevin was adding that little bit. Let's see. So the way I did it before was I just built this stuff up. But I think I do actually need to set these individual values, though maybe I won't need to. So for seconds, it is exactly what Kevin was saying. 1 second here. So for seconds, it's going to be duration mod 60. And then we want to number format. I don't know if I can do number, if number format doesn't let me do prefixes. Twig number format. With leading zeros. Showed up there. Let's see, leading, no. Leading, there we go. Format, you can use the format filter. All right, so I guess I'm just going to use that. So we'll do %20, right? No, 02. 02. That's okay. That's not what I was expecting. That's all right. All right, and let's see if this gives us anything at all. Not really. Let's do mod minutes. I actually don't think this is going to work, but, and this is actually backwards. If it was going to work, which I don't think it will. All right, so we're not actually getting any value out from here. Twig. Format. There we go. I actually have to tell it what type. I think that'll make a big difference. All right, so hours, number of seconds. All right. All right, well, it's at least giving us numbers here, so that's good. So duration. So we want to get rid of anything that's not an hour. And then we want to divide these. By minutes, I believe. These. We haven't had an hour-long episode in a while, so let's see if we have any back here. 60. All right, so I think I actually needed to divide it by hours. And that was episode 21. Okay. And then let's see here. So I think we need the same thing, except divided by minutes. Now that doesn't look right. So let's see. What was episode 21? So that should be 131.30. And we're getting 191.30. So what did I do wrong? So we're taking the duration, getting rid of the minutes, and then dividing by minutes. All right, so we're actually ending up with 5,460 seconds. Now I don't even know if that's right. So it's 91 minutes. Minus 60. All right. See you later, Kevin. Kevin's checking out a chat for a little bit here. And so, so that should be 31, right? Yeah. So 91%, 60. Maybe I don't need to divide it. But I don't understand why that would be. I think I also have to take the hours out of here. So duration, percent minutes. Sometimes I make these sorts of things way more complicated for myself, which is always fun. New 59. No. All right, so we know that this value gives us the number of seconds for the number of minutes there are. So this is how many minutes there are going to be. If we divide that by 60, we get the number of minutes. So let's go ahead and do that. But now we need to subtract the number of seconds that are in the hours. So in this case, it would be 0. In this case, it would be 1. Let's see. So we need I think maybe duration minus the offset. What is this value? That's 3,600. Percent 60. All right, I think that's what we needed. Let's see here. So what's episode 20's time? 31:35, and that's what we have here. Okay, so I think that more or less works. Kind of a roundabout stream of consciousness way of getting there. Hi, Dave. Looks like Dave has joined chat. Welcome. So Dave is presenting another option here, which is let's see, where do we get the number of seconds? To date. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, I want to say I saw there was some problems with that, but only if it goes over a day. Is that about right? Does that sound accurate, Dave? Yeah. I guess given we don't have any episodes that lasted longer than well, I think we had the one that was like 2.5 hours. Yeah. All right. Well, I feel like I want to save this because it was a lot of work. And it was kind of fun to work through it. But I believe maybe this is a more pragmatic solution for now. So I'm just going to open this into a Scratch file just so I have it for reference, and then get rid of it. But I think I do want to wrap it in spaceless. No, there's some other space control things. Dave said he would have given that suggestion earlier, but he had to spend that time signing up for Twitch and stuff like that. So I appreciate that. Let's see. So we have space control. So Twig space control. This is more stuff that I don't have just in my head. So let's see. ID integration. So execute statements. White space control. Spaceless isn't super useful because I think because it's only going to be one line. No leading, trailing, white space is these dashes. So I'm going to do that. Are these the same though? Yeah. So all right. Ooh, why is that at showing up all of a sudden? This wasn't there earlier, was it? Or was it? Does that at not need to be there then? And it still works? Yeah. Okay, so it looks like we don't need the at. I know that I think the at is used for seconds, just number of seconds. But anyway, we'll leave it like this for now. All right, so let's do spaceless. Dave was saying that maybe there's a precedence problem with the concatenate operator versus the pipe, which could make sense. So let's try. Can we do this? I don't know if we can do this, but we'll try. Yeah. It looks like it worked either way, but this looks like this might be probably a better way, because I don't know what it's actually doing if you don't specify the at. So I think I'll leave it like this. So what I was looking for was to see if there's a way specifically for a macro to have spaceless. Removes white spaces between HTML tags, not inside it. Okay. Twig tags. So I can do that within the macro, possibly? Is that what I'm reading? Actually, you know what? This is really probably unimportant. We can fix the spaceless issue if it becomes a problem with rendering. So I'm going to clean this up just a little bit more. I'm going to create this in an actual file. We imported it as helpers. So I'm going to do import helpers. I don't remember if I have to actually specify the extension, but I might as well, I guess. Copy these then. Just make sure that it fails spectacularly. Awesome. And then we're going to create a template. All right, and now let's see if we can render it. Cool. So now we can use that on any of the pages that we need to use duration or making a pretty size, which actually turns out to be a lot of places because we're going to be putting that on the individual episode pages as well. If we actually continue using the Twitter player, we'll use it there. Looks like Oliver's asking if we're going to put the new site source code publicly on GitHub, and we will, and I will. I just haven't yet. It's one of the things that I wasn't completely sure about, but I asked Dave, and neither of us have any reason why we would keep this private. So I think I probably will publish it pretty soon. And it is going to be on its own repository, separate from the older one. So if we go to the existing site, let's see where we have Twitter. You know what? We can't do that. We have to go on a actual episode. And page source, Twitter card. Okay, so we have a player here somewhere. Yeah, Twitter player. So we're going to want to use it on this as well. And if we look what this page looks like, it's just a player version that can be embedded in tweets. So if someone tweets this URL, it's going to embed our player in it so that you can actually play it directly from the Twitter client. I don't know if anyone's doing that, and that's another case where I think I might want to embed a certain or a special type for URL. So if we go to episode, let's see, get download URL. So we have a download URL, we have an RSS URL. I'll probably create a Twitter URL, anything that we're going to specify a URL from a different context so that we can see where people are actually trying to download these things. Okay, so let's see where we're at then. The ideas that we had in place, we were going to create a duration Twig macro. We were going to create a file size Twig macro. Well, we weren't going to, but we ended up doing it, so that's good. Things seem to be pretty stable on it. I think this is good. So maybe one more little thing I'd like to do is clean this up a little bit more, add a little more padding and spacing here, and then we can move on to the next bit. So I'm going to go back to our list and start adding a few more classes here. So I'm going to add some additional padding. Probably starting here. So we'll do padding left, let's do 4. And then on the download, let's do padding left 4 as well. Cool. That's probably a little too much. Let's do half that. All right. And then let's do for the H2, let's do font normal. And let's do padding Y, PY, let's do 2. And it gives a little bit of breathing room there. And then let's do text normal. No. Sometimes this stuff works, sometimes it doesn't. So text, I want small. What's text regular? It might already be text regular. Let's do large and see what that looks like. All right, I like that a little bit better. And then for the controls. Let's do text small. All right, so this is starting to approach our original design a little bit more. Looks like we had like the darker color and not bold for some of these bits here. So let's do regular color here and regular color here. There we go. It still doesn't look at it exactly like I wanted to, but I think that'll be fine. Let's add a little more padding. So let's do padding 16. Okay, cool. So I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave it like this for now, because it's slowly getting there. The rest of the stuff that I had on the list today, it might take more time than I'd like. Yeah, we only have about 10 minutes left. No, 20 minutes. Okay, I think we can do it. So what I'd like to do is actually get the logo on the site. And the logo that we have now is an SVG logo at images SVG. I think that's what it is. No. Oh, you know what? It's in CSS. There we go. All right, so I'm going to copy this file into our resources. So we have assets, JS, and CSS. I'm going to create a new directory called SVG. I've done this a few different ways with Webpack, and I'm going to see if this will work for us. So Victor, let's see where we at. Move. We'll call this all right, so we should be able to reference this. Difficulty is I don't know where we can do that. So this is going to be a little bit of experimenting here. I want to go back to our base where our navigation lives. Here's the logo. And I think I need to give it I'm going to try and see if I can actually reference this using Webpack URL loader stuff. So I'm going to do id equals that podcast logo, which is nice and generic, I know. I'm going to look in app.scss and see if we can do something with that. So let's do podcast logo. Image. And let's see, so we're in here, so we're going to go hash. Let's make sure this is still writing. All right, so let's just see what we have in public build. Images. Huh? This is going to make some things pretty nice, I think. So I think we've got someone outside on a four-wheeler, which is awesome. All right. Podcast. All right, so I need to add some other bits here. I'm going to see what tools Tailwinds has. Background. There we go. So let's do background attachment, position, repeat, size. Let's look here. All right, so because we're already doing it here, I'm just going to add these bits. So we're going to do bg apply bg no repeat. see if this works. It doesn't give me an error. Actually, yeah. All right, so apply. Repeat either cannot be found or its actual definition includes pseudo selector. Let me double check to make sure I'm using the apply custom. Container, adding new utilities. Here we go. Now, must be down components. Why? Here we go. VG. Oh, I see. So Oliver's saying that I maybe just had the name wrong. So let's try that. BG, no repeat. I guess that was it. All right. All right. Thanks for that. Okay, so let's go to the background again. So background attachment. BG center. Let's do BG contain. I don't know if it's actually doing anything here. So let's go check our CSS. I don't see it actually trying to do anything with it. I probably did something weird here. Let's go back. Oh. Okay. This ID needs to be on the div. And let's get rid of BG blue. So it's covering the image, I'm guessing. So now we have that podcast logo. Does it actually have the URL anywhere here? It doesn't. No. Okay. Looks like it was a cache issue. Awesome. Okay. And then let's hide text. Visibility. Text. I don't know if visibility is appropriate, so we don't want it to actually be hidden. Visibility. Contact us, schedule a demo. Let's see what they're doing here. So they actually have text logos. I guess I could do color transparent. At least for now. Oh, see how this looks. Apply. Awesome. Hadn't really expected that. So let's see, text transparent, no underline. No. Oh, I wonder if that's... Yeah, it should be no underline. Might be a problem because of it actually being applied to here. Let's do class. I think these days you can just embed the SVG into your HTML. Yeah, so Jonathan just mentioned that you can just do that. That's actually something that I wanted to take a look at, actually. With the Twig bundle to actually bring the logo inline and not have it in the CSS. But I wanted to see how far, that way you don't have to hide the text. The SVG will have the text in it already. But not hiding it from the DOM. So Oliver found an existing plugin. Let's see here. See if we can use this. So what Jonathan was mentioning is that if you import the SVG directly into the HTML, you don't have to hide the text. The SVG will have the text in it already. I think that makes sense unless we're talking about visually hiding content for like accessibility purposes. Does it make sense to have this item here just be an inline SVG in our unordered list? Maybe it does, but at least for my purposes, I'm thinking it would make sense to be able to have this link here and have it be, readable by screen readers and whatnot, and then have the actual visual representation with the logo just be something that's added on as a visual flair. Also, it looks like Oliver has something else to share here, using SVG directly inline in HTML. Let's see if I can copy that. So this must be interesting. So you just have a directory that has, I'm guessing, the logo inline. So let's look. Use SVG. Okay, so then this is just an SVG file with classes and things in them. Jonathan's saying that SVG ought to be readable by screen readers. That's an interesting point. I haven't looked into that before. So that's something I might take a look at. So the thing that I was going to share was different than what Oliver is doing here. We could take a look at it just to kind of see what the different options are, because I think this is an interesting option for sure. Just having SVG that you can actually use as a Twig template as Twig, which is pretty nice. SVG Twig. Actually, before I do that, let's follow up. It's just easy to do. Required tailwind visually hidden. Nux responsive hover. All right. This is a cool plugin, but I don't think I'm going to use it right now, just because for time and whatnot. I could also just copy this. I could copy this CSS directly into my app.css and do the same thing, which I think I'm actually going to do. Actually, is this going to be a license problem? Do this. License. MIT. Yay! So let's put that in app CSS. I think I could, can I apply this then? I can't remember if that's how that works or not. I'm not going to change text transparent. Oh, no. Yeah, so Oliver was saying I should be able to use that, but the problem is that I don't actually want it to be entirely visually hidden. I just want the text not to show. So yeah, that's not fun. So I'm not going to do this right now. What I'm going to do instead is take a look at the SVG Twig extension. I just look at packages for that. SVG Twig. I think I got the one that was just the most installed. SVG Twig, SVG, okay. I'm going to cheat and see if that's the same package I used for the Astrocast project. Yeah. Let's see here. Copy link address. Yeah, that was just pasted in line. Yeah, so I used this once. Let's see if how it actually works in this case. The problem is that, or not the problem, but the nice thing about doing it this way is that it will version these and give them unique names or whatever. But at the same time, may not matter, because really what we're doing here, if this logo is just going to be embedded in the HTML every time, provided it's not a huge SVG, I think this will probably be more than acceptable. So let's see what happens here. So class SVG. Oh, you know what? I think since it doesn't have a recipe, which I'm getting super spoiled with Flex. I have to actually enable it manually. So let's see here, options. So I need to SVG extension. So what I need to do is I need to go into my services file and just define it. I believe that's all I need to do. I think I can just do this. And now I think it might find it. Yep, cool. So now the next trick is it isn't passed in the name or the path to the SVG. The problem is I don't remember how to specify where that path is. Let's see here. So extension, like is it relative to where? So base path. So, you know what? I think I do remember this now. If I look at Astrocasts, I think I had to specify it. well, I tagged it as Twig extension. I probably didn't need to do that. So what I can do is specify base path. So I'm going to do arguments base path. I think that's how it was spelled, right? Yeah. And I'm going to specify that as being, I don't remember how to do the kernel thing. Kernel, here we go, kernel project root, or projector. Base path will be kernel projector / I think it's assets / SVG. So that should be fine. So I should be able to just specify now that podcast logo.svg. Let's see if I can actually do that. There we go. Cool. And so the way that this is actually being handled then is it's more or less exactly what the kind of code that Oliver was doing. It was just that it's inlining it directly in here. So anything that I need to do to change the color, change the style, or whatever, I can do now through CSS because it's there. Oliver says nice, and I agree. I was pretty happy when I found this particular extension. So now what I can do is I can go back and start tweaking stuff to make this look better. Let's see, we'll go app CSS. No, I don't want you to do anything with that. I'm going to get rid of visually hidden because we don't really need that anymore. There are some things that I can do here now. So I can do, I can give this an ID, and that will make everything a lot better. Let's see. So I can specify attributes. And I can use CSS classes. So I could actually use some of the SVG tools and other sizing related things that come from Tailwind. So actually I'm going to use that first and see how far we can get just doing that. So let's do height equals 8. All right. That didn't work like I wanted. Height width equals, wow, how did I do that in the Astrocast site? Test. Yes, I know there's something live. Actually, let's go here. I don't remember how much hacking I had to do for this. Oh, that's not actually going to tell me anything. SVG. Oh, so this is how I solved it in. This is how I solved it for the Astrocast site, which I think I'm going to revert now because this doesn't make much sense. I actually had to create a Twig global with the build root, and then I asked for the asset path to build images logo. It's totally unneeded. Mostly because, yeah, it doesn't need to be a part of the assets that are being built, mostly because why? Why would it need to be? It's being used inline. The only reason I might want to do this is if the logo is ever going to be used outside. So Jonathan says, what does SVG function do? The rendered version of the DOM, so if I look at the view source, we can see that it just dropped the SVG inline. So it's literally an inline SVG. If we look at the rendered DOM, it's going to be exactly the same. So it's just an SVG element. So you're able to do all sorts of fun stuff with it. if I didn't answer that question right, let me know. The idea is that it's just taking that SVG file and putting it in place. The code that we looked at earlier that Oliver was sharing was more or less the same thing, except it was including the SVG being stored as a Twig file. So they both do the same thing, and this would arguably be better for the things that Oliver is doing with this, because it looks like Oliver is including the file and then passing in additional bits and pieces. This wouldn't be as easy to do with the other SVG package, because it doesn't assume you can change anything inside the SVG. But it is pretty handy if you just have this bit here. So real quick, because I'm running out of time, I'm going to try and see how I did primary navigation logo, because that's where the height stuff came from. So templates, assets, CSS. All right, so I just applied H4. Interesting. And I set it to display block. I wonder if that's a difference. So what I'm going to do then is actually give this an ID. Classes. How do I display block with Tailwind? So just block. Yeah, I could add a block class. Block. And then I'll just add that class. So the Oliver's saying, width for height for, that's great in the case of our logo, because, well, it's square. What's not great is that if I had to calculate those, okay, so Oliver's saying that block is actually a standard class. I just couldn't find any docs related to it. So this still renders the same way. So what I was going to say is that I can do H8 and then width 8 as well. And this works great if you have a square logo. Or it doesn't. Let's see. SVG, width to rem, overflow hidden. So it's on the display page for Tailwind. So I thought I did a search for display, but I guess not. Okay, yeah, so it is just dot block. Awesome, thanks. Why is this not working though? Width 8, height 8. So width is 2 rem, height is 2 rem. Let's do 16. What did I think I must have had to break something else out. Like, I see now that there's actual width and height here within the SVG itself. I wonder if I have to remove that by hand. That didn't seem to do anything. switch to different size. Height and width, view box. Is that on there? No. So I didn't have any, I don't remember I had any problems with this, or whatever solution I attempted to use on this the first time actually just worked. Scaling SVG. Huh. Open the SVG files and make sure they're either set to 100%, solve your problem. Have no width and height. Well, we have no width and height anymore. I'm not sure why then this is not working. There's no view box. All right, so this wasn't a problem. So this actually has a view box. So what was this saying about view boxes? Original size. Did it scale correctly when you try? Jonathan's in chat saying, did it scale correctly when you tried as a background image? Well, we never got that. Well, no, we did. It did scale right because we did have it as a square that was the right size that we expected. It's just that the text on top of it was purple and underlined. So it did actually show up at the right size. If you don't, SVG won't scale at all. Let's clear dot line without ever alt. Just an image. That width and height attributes. View box. So let's try view box. Defines coordinates of the system 100 units. It's high. In other words, for SVG. I guess let's try this. We'll add this to the SVG. So it does see the view box there. Width. It didn't seem to work. Our view box for this one has X and Y coordinates set. Transform. Preserve aspect ratios with a certain size while distorting the image. This looks all really annoying. I'll user interact with modified CS. Will it scale? It will if you're using the latest Firefox or Blink. Just set the view box on your SVG and set one of the height or width to auto. Huh. Yeah, this was really awesome and fun until it just doesn't work. Let's try this CSS. Keep forgetting I have it open in here. Let's do trying to see if there's anything else that's in here. So there's view box, there's X and Y. Enable background. That's not doing preserve, alt ID primary. Maybe it's because we're specifying both height and width. That would be very annoying and arbitrary. No. So the height looks like it's working. At 16. No, it still seems... There must be something different about the way that this particular image was originally saved as an SVG as compared to the one I have for Astrocasts logo. So I'm gonna have to take this offline. I think I'm actually a little past my time. So thanks for joining. Hopefully I'll be able to show something next week. The sessions relating to that podcast I'll pick up again next Monday at the same time. But I'm going to do a little more work later this evening in a longer session working on the Astrocast site itself. So if you want to join for that as well, awesome. Otherwise, thanks for joining me.